So this was a video that I said I would go on ahead and try and get done as soon as I'm able to, after I pretty much made that rant about, well, what was it? What exactly was it that I ranted about? Oh yeah, now I remember. Well, even then though, I still stand with what I said with my little rant and everything like such. But, oh yeah, with jobs and things like that, but still, we have to literally talk about the school system. I can guarantee you all, nobody really enjoyed school. There are a couple of few that actually did enjoy it, but with all due sincerity, though, I'm sure most of us didn't. But it isn't really a matter of whether or not we liked school or not, as it's not exactly the thing. What I am going to be talking about, however, is the basic of school that is a huge problem with today's society, specifically to our younger kids. And if you think I'm going to be ranting about teachers, I'm going to sit there and go on ahead. I guess this is the best time to sit there and start talking about basically the kids and of their own, well, the teachers and of their own selves. I'm not going to rant about them because let's just be completely honest here. If you were a teacher sitting there making who knows how much, probably maybe like $5 or $6 an hour, sitting down at a desk, having to sit there and continuously grade papers and teach a giant thing of lessons that you yourself might not even like or even want to sit there and teach. Let's be completely honest here. I don't think that you're gonna want to sit there and put every little bit of effort into into the lessons and of their own selves. Because nobody's gonna want to care. I'm not saying this is the case with every single teacher, as there's plenty of teachers I'm sure that love teaching and love making it the career that they have. But of course, though, with the fact that teachers are genuinely extremely underpaid and not really treated too well, to be honest, not just by the students, but even by the staff and faculty and everything like such. I mean, you can't help but feel sorry for them, and yet we wonder why they don't often do a very good job in their education system. And it's not even with the aspect of, high school or college, it's even elementary schools too. Now, I do want to further clarify this. I am not against education. If anything, I am pro-education. I believe that all kids should be able to learn how to read, write, and their basic math, and pretty much literally everything that needs to be dealt with and done with. The basic things that do need to be taught to a young child. That way they have the ability to understand everything that needs to be said and that needs to be done. That's extremely important. I believe in the importance of English classes. I believe in the importance of grammar and such, because that's a really good way of helping out a lot of, students. Heck, it helped me out. How do you think I'm able to write how do you think I'm able to write stories? It's like long ones too. I'm not saying I'm perfect or anything with it, but still, these kind of classes in of their own selves are actually very, very important. And I do understand the importance of all of those kind of classes. However, though, there is a huge line I have to sit there and draw when it comes to other kind of classes that really don't provide much for younger kids. For example, I'm talking about the aspect of history, math, solely on the algebraic type, and of course a couple of extra other ones, and specifically, and also a couple of extra classes as well that are going to be mentioned. Let's start off with history. I understand that it's extremely important to learn about your history and everything, realize the mistakes that, society has done in the past and not try and do that again, which, let's be completely honest here, people, it doesn't matter what we do. We're going to repeat history one way or another. It's just going to happen. It's an honest truth here. It doesn't matter what we do. We can try and prevent that kind of tragedy from happening, but it will eventually happen again. But that's also the case with the education system, though, is the fact of the matter that education, especially when it comes to the history classes, what does it really provide in the long run? That right there is the biggest thing. What is this going to provide in the future for our kids? The answer to that question is not very much, if barely even anything at all. If you really want to get technical with it, a lot of things that are taught within history, even though they are important, at least to know about, it isn't something, however, that, it isn't exactly something that any kid is really going to sit there and keep in their mind all the time. Who's going to sit there and remember, when this specific war happened in like a certain date or time. I mean, who's really going to use all that? I mean, unless you're a history buff or something along those lines. But another thing too is, some of the information you don't even get all the way through in an entire year. I can sit there and say for a full-on fact that when it came to the actual concept of history classes, never once was there ever a time that we completely filled out the entire book, that we ever learned the entirety of our history. Even in the earliest times of, like, say, even the earliest times of history, specifically the later version at the end of the textbooks, we would never work with. And something else too that I have to sit there and say as well is, what exactly, like I said, what's the point? I get it, it's to help educate some people about certain things, but even then though, to me personally, it just doesn't exactly seem to really work out well. Another issue I tend to have with schooling is the homework. I can certainly agree with every single child out there that homework is one of the worst things to be given. Now, I do understand why it is given, but be completely honest with yourself here. What is it going to even help? You sit there and you wake up at an extremely early time, oftentimes at around maybe 6 a.m. each and every single day from Monday to Friday, having to get up and having to sit there and spend at least 7 or 8 hours of your life in a small little classroom, bored as all hell, and probably even hungry as hell too. I'm going to get to that in a little bit. Probably hungry as hell, and you just don't want to even bother being there. You're completely sleep deprived because of the lack of sleep that you get in a single night. And then, to top all that off, after you finally get done working all that grueling time at school, you have to go home and work at least 2 or 3 more hours at home doing an endless amount of homework. This, my friends, is a big issue. See, here's the thing when it comes to the aspect of children's brains, and even high schooler brains. Homework, like all the unnecessary amount of homework that's given, you're not guaranteed to learn any of it. In fact, you're more likely to forget everything. I can certainly promise you all one thing right here and right now, with all the amount of homework I've actually gotten in the past. I actually remember back in elementary school that I had a backpack completely filled to the brim with textbooks that I had to bring home, that I actually had to bring home with me so I could do my homework in, and I have a hunchback because of it. It's probably noticeable, but it's there. I have a hunchback because of it. And another thing too is that having all that weight on one child's back is going to do a lot of damage to their spine. I mean, it's either you're going to be extremely hunchbacked, or if worse comes to worse, you're going to sit there and have a lot of back problems in the future. Fatal ones if it's really bad. Now, I don't know if this is exactly the case now, but even then though, all the heavy amount of books, all the homework that has to be given within it to a single child nonetheless, doesn't help improve their memory, doesn't help improve anything. If anything, it just makes kids freaking hate everything when it comes to the concept of school. And another thing too, rigorous testing. This I never understood. I never truly understood why there was always so much constant rigorous testing. I mean, there'd be times there'd be a pop quiz that would come completely out of nowhere, and you might not even be able to know anything because of the fact that you couldn't focus because of literally nothing that sticks out. That's another issue when it comes to teaching these kind of things, is that even though there are tutors and everything like such, you're not guaranteed to automatically have everything stick in your head, and to have sit there and have a pop quiz come out there and just sit there and slap you in the fucking face. I mean, that right there is already a big pain in of its own self. And of course, getting back to the homework aspect of it, it's extremely grueling. And, well, not just extremely grueling, but your brain can't handle it. It's going to get to that point where it's not only going to completely tire you out, but you're going to be sitting there studying so much that any important information that you had is just going to get pushed out of your brain, and you won't even remember anything, thus completely making all those hours pointless. Now, I have heard, some people sitting there and say that you should have like a specific study schedule, but even with that kind of thing, you're still not completely guaranteed to, do a whole lot. I mean, there are some people that are able to keep up with this kind of thing, and here's the thing too. Here's the important thing. Homework does nothing but push away all the knowledge that you did wind up learning. Honestly, if you're going to sit there and bombard them with a ton of homework, why even bother teaching them any of the things that you're teaching them? It's not really helping them. It's not helping any of the kids work. And of course, with the rigorous testing, it's too much stress for people. It really is. But that's not the most insulting thing. To add insult to injury, there's a grading system. And let's be completely honest here, people. The grading system in and of its own self is the biggest issue regarding school. Because when it comes to the grading scale, you have A, B, C, D, and F. A for being pretty much great, and F being complete failure, which is why it's called F. But here's the problem with it. The grading scale in and of its own self does nothing but completely and utterly make every student pretty much feel like crap if they get an F or a D. I mean, there's actual people out there that if they get a D or an F or even a B at times, they go into like a crazy social freaking anxiety attack. In fact, I actually have a little bit of a story about that too. Here's the thing, here's the biggest issue with grades. As I've already mentioned already, they're a problematic issue. They're very, very, very problematic. But here's the thing when it comes to grades. I remember one time I was having a bit of a struggle with geometry. I fucking hate geometry. I'm going to be completely honest here. I hate it so much, and I'm quite sure most of us do. Honestly, I do wish that in of its own self was an optional class, which I do believe many of these math courses should be optional. If you want to take those kind of classes, go right on ahead, but it should not be mandatory. That's a problem. But of course, getting back to the whole my story, I remember I was in a geometry class, and I was not doing particularly well. Now, of course, I will put a little bit of blame on myself that I didn't really ask for help, but at the same time, though, the way that my parents would honestly sit there and do the whole math thing was already hard enough as in and of its own self, and it would not help me in any way. I remember asking for help, and nothing in and of its own self would, like literally nothing would help at all. Because that's another problem with school. Every single time you go there, every year, it's always a brand new way of doing things. And this is especially true with even basic math. And that is a really big issue. Because when you start going to your parents and things like that, you're just going to be even more confused and not understand any of it because there's going to be they have their way of doing it while you have to sit there and do it another kind of way. And even if you do it with your parents' kind of way, you're most likely to sit there and get your answer marked wrong because you're not doing it in that specific way. And that is a big slap in the face to many students who want nothing else more but to understand this kind of thing. But getting back to my story, I remember I wasn't doing too well. I think I actually had a D in geometry. I remember getting my progress report once, and here's the thing. I snapped. I flat out snapped. And it wasn't because of the fact that I had a D. Well, that was partially the reason, but the main reason being is that it made me feel like such a failure. It made me feel like absolute shit. It made me want to rip my hair out. I freaking snapped. I pulled out a paper clip and I started stabbing myself with it, specifically in the thumb. I just got pissed. I didn't hurt anybody or anything. I don't do that, but I started hurting myself, and they actually had to get the principal and everything to come and get me and bring me to the counselor's office to talk because I just couldn't handle it. It was the fact of the matter that no matter how hard I tried, everything just went by wrong. And whenever not to mention that parents too, oh my gosh, grading system is literally put on such a high fucking pedestal now that, It's like even if you have it's like a simple letter grade can determine whether or not you not just fail or pass, but also can determine whether or not you lose something, whether it be your mind or whether it be something else. But yeah, it was bad. I actually had to sit outside for the rest of the class because, I was a bit of a danger to some of the students. And I freaked a lot of them out too because I never snapped like that before. It didn't happen ever again. I mean, but even then though, there was still that situation where I literally lost it because I just couldn't handle the fucking stress. I couldn't. I tried everything that I could do to make sure of it that I did well. And having to sit there and have parents continuously on my ass all the time, sitting there saying, why do you not have an A or things like that, and pretty much guilt tripping me to the fullest extent of guilt trips, was problematic. It hurt me. It killed me. But that's not the worst part about it. I remember going home, and this is going to be really dark. So just a bit of a warning here. I remember going with my little progress report thing and, showing it to my stepmother. And obviously she wasn't particularly happy about it. I mean, she said that, you're sitting there and, why are you not doing I mean, I don't know. It triggered depression for me. I remember feeling like shit. And I remember her leaving to go and, work and stuff like that. And I was home alone. And I just remember feeling like shit. In more ways than you would think. And I walked into my room. And I actually collapsed on the ground, crying my eyes out. Because I felt like an absolute failure. I felt like I was amounting to nothing. I felt like I was an absolute piece of shit. I had no rhyme or reason to even remotely be happy at all. I cried, I think, for about over an hour. But that's not the worst part about it. Afterwards, I got up from there and I started writing a suicide note. I don't have it on me anymore, thank goodness, but I actually sat down on a desk, put out a piece of paper, and started writing down a suicide note. Basically apologizing to my parents of how useless I was, how much of a piece of shit I really was, how I can't ever do anything right, how I have all these problems, and then I'll never succeed to anything. And, I'm going to stop it right there just for a little bit. And I know some of you might think that that's a bit of an over-exaggeration because of the fact that that was just one D. You don't seem to understand this. The grading system is put so high up in standard that if you don't have A's, or even B's, or even a C, well, really mostly A's or even a B, then you are considered pretty much the lowest of the low. You will never amount to anything. You're pretty much a pile of dog shit. That's quite literally what they make you out to feel, and that's exactly how it made me feel. So afterwards, after I got done writing, I put the note on my desk, and I went over and I started trying to look for my dad's pills, because he has a ton of them. And I grabbed it, and I hesitantly opened it up, and I started taking a couple of the pills. I didn't take many of them, thankfully. I actually stopped in the process and started freaking out because I thought I was going to die because I was taking somebody else's pills. And I was afraid of committing suicide because of the fact that I believed in hell, which, if I had to say one good thing with my old Christian faith is that, it kept me from killing myself out of fear of going to hell. Which is a good thing, because, that's like the one good thing I can really say. And I started freaking out, I started praying, I started doing a bunch of other stuff. And that's another thing, too. I pretty much went into a huge mental breakdown after that. Afterwards, I think I took the letter and I threw it somewhere. I just felt like shit for the rest of the day. Obviously, though, my dad wasn't angry with me or anything like such. He understood. He didn't punish me or anything like that. He just wanted me to do a lot better and ask them for help, which, like I said, wasn't exactly a possibility due to the fact that their way of doing things was complete opposite. But that goes to show you how bad these things can get. I know it sounds completely and utterly crazy for me to attempt suicide over the fact that I was not doing that well in school. But like I said, the system in and of its own self, that is exactly how you are supposed to be. If you are not making good grades, you are considered a low-class piece of trash. You are considered a degenerate. You are considered a freaking idiot. You are considered a lot of things. And even if you do have horrible grades, the teachers and many other people will guilt trip you so much to the point where they will make it seem that if you do not have perfect grades in your classes, in every one of them, not only will you never succeed to anything, you'll be pretty much living a 9-to-5 job at a fast food joint, pretty much poor and picking pennies for the rest of your fucking life. That's precisely the kind of thing that schools, public schools, private schools, and other schools out there make you sit there and feel like. They make you feel like shit. Which is why if I ever have a kid, I am never sending them to a public school. I'm homeschooling them. Or at least hiring a private tutor or someone like that, because I'm not having my kid go through that crap. I mean, if you think that the school system back then was so bad enough to drive me nearly to kill myself, imagine how it is now, knowing the fact of the matter that schools today are sitting there teaching kids a bunch of stupid shit that doesn't even need to be taught. I mean, let's be completely honest here. Do we really need to sit there and have a course on freaking social justice? No, we don't. It's bad enough that it's in colleges, but we don't need them in high schools or even elementary schools. Treating people right and treating them well is how we should learn. But yeah, with that being said, here's another big issue when it comes to the school system. School systems don't care about street smarts. You have to have street smarts in order to live. You have to know how to balance a checkbook. You have to learn how to properly manage your finances, how to buy a house, how to sit there and basically get a job, how to sit there and live. Very few schools teach that kind of thing. I actually had an economics class, a few of them actually, and they didn't really teach me much. I kind of wish I had paid a little bit more attention to it, but even then though, they didn't really teach much. But I was lucky enough to even get that, because most schools don't teach you this kind of thing. If anything, if schools need to be teaching something, they don't need to be teaching completely useless crap like old history that literally nobody wants to even bother thinking about. Or then don't need to sit there and teach what's a squared plus b squared equals c squared. They don't need to be teaching, what's the square root of 546. They don't need to be teaching freaking cell crap or whatever, unless you're becoming a biologist or a scientist or things like that. But even in that matter, though, even in those matters, you don't need to be learning that kind of useless crap. You need to be learning stuff that actually can benefit you in life. How to pay your taxes, how to get a house, how to do a mortgage, how to sit there and get a job, how to sit there and do the basic simplistic things in life that school never teaches us. Not even parents teach this kind of thing anymore because they expect the school system to do it. And with all due sincerity, once you finally leave high school, once you finally have completed all of those things, you will be pretty much leaving out there with nothing else more but a piece of paper in your hands. I'm not saying, however, though, that all aspects of school, whatever it is, even high school, is useless. There are some out there that are actually very beneficial. And if you have the opportunity to take those kind of classes, like say home ec or like cooking or any of those kind of things, then go at it. That is a great thing for you to take if you have the elective that you're able to do. Unfortunately, though, I kind of wish that things like, trigonometry and other things like such were all optional. Because let's be honest here, what exactly is geometry, algebra, algebra 1, algebra 2, and other things like such really going to help out? What is any of that really going to do for a person who's probably not even going to be taking a field in that whatsoever? Have those things be optional and provide a lot more courses on the basics of life in general. If you want to make mandatory courses, have those be mandatory courses. Have, learning how to do your taxes, learning how to do all of those kind of things, mandatory courses for everyone, because everyone's going to need to know that. Learn how to be properly financial with money. Learn how to save it properly. Know how to choose banks. I mean, people, this is literally the kind of thing, and I'm not sitting here and just saying this because nobody else, everyone has said this stuff. Everyone who rants about school, everyone who knows what the school system does and what they teach, everyone knows that these are the kind of things that they don't teach you, but what they should be teaching you. That's what school is honestly supposed to be about. You're supposed to learn to read and write and do basic math and other things like such, and English and all that other stuff too. And you also need to be learning about how exactly you can manage your finances, get a house, and basically learn how you can keep yourself and how to, basically learn to live comfortably for the rest of your life. These are the kind of things that schools will never teach you. I don't even think private schools teach you this kind of thing. The very most you're going to be able to really learn, people, is learning from homeschooling. Because at least then your parents and family can at least teach you this basic stuff, because they've learned how to do this kind of stuff. They've learned how to actually be able to sit there and do the things that they need to do. I mean, look at me. I'm 21 years old. I don't know how to balance. I don't know how to freaking do taxes. I don't know how to do any of that kind of thing. I barely even know how to freaking balance a checkbook. I don't even have a checkbook. I mean, it goes to show you that, the school system does nothing else more but fill people up with useless book smarts and doesn't provide people with the basics of street smarts. I mean, I get it that you wind up learning that naturally in a sense, but for some of those things, but it's not all of it. Schools need to sit there and actually step up with their education system, because then if we actually learned how to teach people to do this kind of thing, we wouldn't have all this crime. We wouldn't have theft. We wouldn't have a whole lot of poverty. We wouldn't have a whole lot of any of this crap. None of us would. Some of us would be able to afford a home or things like that, or be able to know what we need to do, set up an emergency fund if we have that, save up as much money as we can get. I mean, let's be honest here, people. I mean, this is the stuff they should be teaching, but they don't. And to the teachers, I have no blame whatsoever to them. If we really want to blame someone, we shouldn't blame the teachers. I've already made it already abundantly clear that teachers are not the people that we need to be ganging up on. Teachers are underpaid. Teachers don't get a whole lot. Teachers barely even get benefits. Teachers in and of their own selves, even the ones that love doing what they do, don't get enough. And they should be getting a lot more praise than they should be by the districts and even by the students too. Because I can't tell you how many students today are literally absolute fucking idiots. You want to know what's extremely sad? It's gotten so bad in the public school system that high schoolers that I knew couldn't even read the faces on a clock. Everything was so digitalized that you didn't even know how to sit there and read a freaking clock. I learned that stuff in freaking kindergarten, yet many high schoolers don't even know this kind of thing because it's never really taught anymore. Everything's so digitalized now. Another issue when it comes to the schooling and things like such is with parents. This is a big problem. Parents, many of them will find something to get offended over. And I'm not just talking about the religious crazy zealot one. Actually, no, I am talking about them. Because there's a lot of them. Political correctness, whether it be a religious side or a secular side, is going to be something that's unfortunately been in our schools since pretty much since in and of its own self, since like I wouldn't really say recent, but even then, way back then, let's just put it there. I mean, schools are literally having to sit there and bow down to these freaking political correct bullshit people in order to not lose their funding. And the school funding in and of its own self is absolute shit too. And speaking of school funding, let's talk about school food. I don't know about you and me. I remember when I had school lunches back then. I remember, and it's kind of funny. I didn't hate them. I thought they were actually relatively decent. They were okay. School foods back then were fine. Hell, I even remember having to drink milk out of a bag. I'd play with them. I'd get like a chocolate milk and play with them. I wouldn't really drink it. Because if anything, I kind of thought the idea of actually doing that was gross and having to look at all the bubbles. I mean, I don't know. Just my own personal bias, but I thought that was kind of cool. But unfortunately, with school lunches nowadays, especially with the Michelle fucking Obama, school lunches have been so heavily reduced that kids today have literally no energy to focus. And another thing too is that even lunch times are put so freaking early too. I mean, do you really want to sit there and eat lunch at freaking 11:30 in the morning? There's schools that do that. I mean, lunchtime should be solely dedicated to around 12 to 3. Maybe possibly 4, but obviously schools don't run that far, but still. But getting back to school lunches though, they've gotten worse. I mean, they were never, in the beginning, they were actually relatively good to eat. Cooks and chefs and things like that actually made their food homemade. They spent their time and their effort crafting the food that we ate to make sure that it was not only delicious, but nutritious as well, to feed a good mind. Unfortunately, later on, though, it kind of dived a lot more into pizzas and burgers and other frozen bull crap because, let's be honest, schools don't really have that much funding to provide a homemade meal. You might get that occasionally in certain public schools, but that's not very often when it comes to how schools today run. Now, of course, with Michelle Obama making these extreme changes with schools, it's actually made the situation worse. Because instead of providing kids with a nice big meal, a nice big meal full of good food to eat, like real meat instead of fake soy crap, big old giant salads and fruits and all that kind of stuff, most of the school food is literally garbage. They literally have to either cut down on calories, which is awful, because, in fact, I think even elementary schools, you can't have more than 800 calories of food on your plate. And in high school, I think it's like less than 1,000, if even that. And it's bad, because here's the thing. Especially when it comes to school lunches. Kids are not going to eat that crap. I know for a fact I wouldn't even eat that crap. The school lunches, even now, like I said, have gotten worse. It's literally nothing else more but mystery meat bull crap. Food that does not taste good, food that oftentimes is reused. Yes, that happens. And I can't tell you how many times there have been people who have gotten milk that is expired. There actually have been instances. I actually remember getting a milk carton that was like 3 or 4 months expired. And you have to really check that kind of thing. And many of the school milks are frozen. So you get like little ice crystals and things like that in that, and it makes the milk taste terrible. But oftentimes though, and this is especially the case with breakfast, many of them are not even thawed. Many of the milks and the drinks are not even thawed, so you can't even get a good drink. And not to mention the fact that they are so tiny. Back then, you could get like a giant quart of freaking milk to drink with your meal and be satisfied. Other schools now, the milk cartons aren't even that big. They're like they're barely the size of a freaking wrist. How the hell is that going to sit there and hydrate anyone? And don't sit there and say they can go to the water fountain. I don't trust those things. Kids sit there and put their spit and everything on it. It's disgusting. It really is. With my school, you at least had an opportunity to get free water. Like water and everything, put into a giant case with ice in it. Likely chances it was sink water that, they got from the nozzle, but it was something else. It was something that I could at least drink and not die of thirst afterwards. And even then, how do you expect somebody to eat if they don't have something to drink with it? It's going to be difficult for them to chew and difficult for them to swallow, and it might even be a health hazard too. Another problem with the school food, and it's obviously the fact of the matter that it's disgusting, I think I've already mentioned, is the cost. The cost of school lunches are freaking crazy. And I know that there's free and reduced price lunches, but the whole system with that is so shady, I don't even really buy into it. It's like if you have a certain amount of money that's even like $1 over, the limit or whatever it is, you can't get free or reduced lunch. Even if you're piss poor, you can barely get any of that kind of food because they won't feed it to you. They don't want to feed it to you. And I remember this. I actually had brought my lunch with me, but I decided to go through the lunch line, and I even asked the lunch lady to give me one of those, if you can't pay kind of meals. She said, "Are you sure about that?" I said, "Yes." And I took it with me. You want to know what it was? 2 pieces of crappy cold bread, a slice of crap cheese that wasn't even the good processed cheese, I might add, an apple, and a milk. That's all it was. No protein, no vegetation, nothing. Except for a piece of crap. I mean, the school food's already shit enough as it is. But whenever you have such a horrid meal right then and there, it's not even a meal. It's just garbage. It's horrible garbage. But that's nothing compared to what could happen if you don't even have your money. You can't even get lunch, so you have to starve to death. I mean, how much of a sadistic fuckwit do you have to be to deny a child a meal? I mean, yeah, the food's crap anyway. I wouldn't eat it. But I mean, most kids are that hungry to the point where they have to sit there and eat the food that's given to them. I mean, and that's the little nutrition that they can even get. But whenever you don't have enough money, you can't eat whatsoever. Or you get one of those extremely crappy meals. So, I mean, what's up with that? I mean, if you're going to have a meal that for free or whatever it is, at least balance everything out. But many of them don't. They don't balance this stuff out. It's just bread, crap cheese, probably from the Dollar Tree most likely. I mean, let's be honest here. That shit never melts. I mean, unless you get the Velveeta stuff, which is so fucking good. But anyway, you don't get a proper meal. You get like maybe a little bit of milk. You get a piece of crappy fruit, which probably is old and withered away anyway. I can't tell you how much of the fruit I don't even eat. I don't eat the fruit there, because who knows how long it's been there for. I mean, but yeah, I mean, you have barely anything to eat. And if you try eating the bread and everything, it's so dry, because they don't give you condiments to put anything on there. They don't. They don't put anything. They don't put crap on it. They don't put any remote kind of thing whatsoever for you to get. Maybe a little pack of mayo, but I hate mayonnaise, so fuck that. Like, literally fuck mayo to the fullest extent of the word. But still, I mean, especially if someone who has like an egg allergy or whatever too. I mean, then you're gonna pretty much be eating a dry thing of nothing. So yeah, the school lunch thing is extremely fucked over. But at the same time, though, it's the budget that doesn't allow people to make, really good food. And who's to blame for that? The school system. I mean, not only is the school system completely piss poor when it comes to education, but it's also piss poor when it comes to food, treating their students properly, and many other things. Now, I'm not going to sit here and brag or anything like such, but Hancock High School, the school I went to, was a very good school. I enjoyed it a lot. I mean, hell, they did a lot of different awesome stuff to, sit there and support people. Well, basically saying, they did a lot of fun stuff for us. And I'm not saying that all schools are like this. There are plenty of schools, a minimum amount of schools that actually do really, really well and have a lot of fun events, which is great. I'm fine with that. But of course, though, it really depends, though. I mean, in fact, Hancock High, I think, was rated #1 star school. And let me tell you, we had a freaking kick-ass time. We had freaking bouncy houses. We had DJ. We had freaking karaoke, which I did. And I got like a literal standing ovation and a freaking carry-on. I was crowd surf, people. That was fucking awesome. But still, though, I mean, there are some positives. I'm not saying that all of school is shit, but I mean, you're bound to have some positive sides. And maybe I should mention some of those. I mean, depending on the school you go to, you can get a lot of different kind of, things. In fact, the school that I went to, we had a thing called the Krispy Kreme Social, where we literally had a shit ton of Krispy Kreme donuts handed to us. Well, you got to pay for it. You can either pay $1 for each individual donut, or you can pay $5 for half a dozen donuts. That was freaking delicious. And they had like a dance off too in the process. It was really, really fun. There was also a lot of amazing dances and stuff. I mean, but I think the best time that I remember when it came to school was the big star school party that we had. And this was like, it was divided up. Not everybody was there because there wasn't a whole lot of room. But I'm telling you guys right now, it was freaking beautiful. We had freaking bounce houses for like a bunch of teenagers to go and jump up and down on. We had a giant costume contest thing where we could actually wear our costumes to school. Like anything that we wanted to. I dressed up as Michael Jackson, if anybody wondering. You could sit there and get prizes. Like real good prizes too. I remember I got a ticket. Like a ton of these cool tickets after like winning a dance off. I wish I had a video of that. I'd show you guys. It was amazing. When I danced to Michael Jackson pretty damn well, Billie Jean for anybody wondering. And you got tickets, and I also got a box of Nerds too that I had. And the tickets in and of their own selves, I actually wind up winning a black Wii. I mean, there was plenty of amazing prizes like Beats headphones, Wiis, Xbox 360s, PS3s, literally a ton of awesome shit that you could get. And it was amazing. I mean, not to mention the fact that, not only did I freaking dance and stuff, I actually did my own thing with karaoke with Man in the Mirror, and I got a freaking standing ovation and literally got freaking crowd surfed to like 30 or 40 minutes before like everyone put me down. Like they all loved it. It was fun. I mean, I enjoyed it a lot. I mean, there's also Friends and other things like such, and I mean, there is some good with it, but unfortunately the negative aspects of school oftentimes do tend to outweigh the positives. It's unfortunate, but it'll always be that way. Will there ever truly be a good reform in school? No. In fact, I truly believe that public schools and other schooling like such is just going to keep on getting worse and worse as time is going to progress. I mean, sooner or later, the school system is either going to lose its funding completely, or they're going to be so politically correct that nobody's going to want to take their kids there. I mean, even the most liberal people out there despise those kind of ideas. But even then, though, that's my big old giant rant about school.
This is going to be more of a rant on the school system in general, here in America specifically. Now, here's the thing I can say, and I'm not just going to be talking solely about public schools either. I'm also going to be talking about colleges, specifically public colleges. Private schools and things like that are more or less going to be excluded in this kind of topic because that in of its own self is their own form and rant, and I much rather would do that in a separate video. But in this one, I'm going to be talking about the school system. Not just with public school, but with colleges, universities, and so many other things. And why they are absolute garbage, why they do not work, and many, 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 many other things. But let's start this all off with, one thing. There are many things that many type of people in various different other countries and everything tend to look at America at and laugh at, and many of it is extremely legitimate. Like for one, we have an extremely insane obesity issue. That's one thing. Our healthcare system is an absolute freaking joke. Reason I say that due to the fact that there is extremely high bills just for the simplest of cost, when it comes to going to the doctor and things like that. Health insurance is pretty much nothing else more but a giant fucking scam. And of course, there's also the fact that people in America actually have a very high poverty rating compared to many other different kind of countries and things like that. Don't believe me? It's true. The poverty level here in America is staggering. We are the one country that uses probably the most government assistance because, jobs are garbage. And that's another thing, too. The job system here in America is extremely biased at times. It is ridiculous. And to make matters even worse, it's become extremely difficult nowadays to actually get a job. Another thing that people can genuinely laugh at America is that our prices for homes and things like that are obviously extremely too high, very, very, very hard to pay for. The rent is out of control. And of course, we also have corrupt government officials. We have corrupt corporations that like to suck out the pennies out of our pockets at any opportunity that they can get. There is the corrupt payment system that barely pays anybody a living wage. I mean, despite the fact that most people nowadays can't really seem to get much of it. But my main topic here, and I think the biggest laughing stock here in America, is the education system. The education system here in America is about subpar at best, and at worst, worse than third world country-esque education. And no, I'm not specifically talking about the whole political concepts and other things like such. In fact, the political aspects of colleges, schools, and everything that have been pretty much ravaging all over the place is just a minor little issue, a little tiny dent compared to the main problems that our American system has. Now, let's go back in time a little bit here. Think about it. Think about the times where your education actually meant something. You know, back then in, say, like the 40s, 50s, 60s, and even the 70s and 80s at that most. You know, if you actually look back at it, you can see that many people, you know, actually gained something with their education. You know, colleges themselves weren't crazily expensive as they are now, and people not only gained actual knowledge for real things in life, but also gained life skills as well. Now, I'm not saying it was perfect, because it wasn't, but for the most part, though, education in that period of time, at least to an extent, was actually relatively decent. That is, however, until around in the late 80s and 90s, when crazy theocrats and other individuals out there really wanted to sit there and, you know, push their giant snot noses into the public school system. And unfortunately, even nowadays, we still have that, especially here in the southern states. For example, creationism is usually taught more or less with evolution. And there's a huge difference to that. Creationism is only a theory. In fact, it's not even really much of a theory. It's based off of a book, a 2,000-year-old book, filled with dubious history and various other things as well. And also, that is just completely and utterly redundant. I mean, a lot of things, even in that specific book that I will not mention because it's kind of obvious what I'm talking about, in and of its own self is extremely scientifically inaccurate in many, many, many ways. Now, historically, that's debatable, but still, though. Of course, we had the crazy theocrats going around, things like that, and like I said, it's still a problem even today in this system. And the main issue with that is the lack of proper education. You know, with evolution, you know, the Big Bang, you know, what exactly really happened. Science is, you know, everything that science has ultimately been able to prove so far, unfortunately, is being completely dumbed down. But even in places that aren't completely dumbed down by religious insanity, there's still a lot of issues in regards to the education system itself. See, back then in the early 50s, 60s, 70s, and such, there were actually many, many, many different kind of classes and many different kind of topics, more or less, that people would take in order to not only be able to have a proper education and know what they're doing, but also be able to fulfill their lives, you know, later on. I mean, you know, think about it. You know, people had home ec, people had cooking classes, people had, you know, learning different languages, like Latin, for example. Latin was a huge language to learn back then. There was also various other topics themselves, you know, how you can, you know, work, how you know, do your taxes, things like that, economics classes, everything like such. All of those things, or at least a good portion of them, were usually taught in certain schools, or if not almost every kind of public school. Hence the whole reasoning why exactly that was, you know, why the education system back in America was extremely top-notch. I mean, take a look at the education then, and take a look at the education now, and you can see a very huge difference. Nowadays, ever since the late 80s, 90s, and 2000s, our education system went from being, you know, top-notch and amazing to absolute dog crap. And what do I mean by that? Simple. Take a look at any of the public school system and things like that, and you will see various issues with it. For one, a lack of life skills. In fact, Nowadays, life skills are very rarely, if ever, taught. And if they are taught, they're taught rather minusculely in elective classes. There are no longer major classes that are meant to sit there and teach and educate kids, and teenagers too, about how to, balance everything, manage your taxes, balance a checkbook, things like that. Very rarely, if ever, you don't even get any of those things. You don't learn them. And that's a problem, especially knowing how economically, bad we are with money at times. Another issue itself that we genuinely tend to have in the American system of education is the extreme amount of stress with schoolwork. Schoolwork, test, homework, and grades. You see, way back then, those actually mattered. Nowadays, they don't. They're nothing more but a stupid letter. Unfortunately, for a lot of people, including myself and many others like nowadays, these grades and these tests are so harped on that, and these lessons that none of us really even need. And that's the biggest issue with with the American system of education, is that most of the things that we need are crap classes. Actually, no, not need, but don't need, are crap classes. These classes that provide us nothing, that teach us nothing, that give us nothing, especially what we originally planned to do with our lives. I can't tell you how many forced electives I've wound up having to take, that involves something about as ridiculous and stupid, like, say, I don't know, what was it? There were a couple of them, actually, I can think of. Physical ed, well, actually, not even physical ed, but there's like a bunch of others. I can't really recall them too much, because it has been a long time since I've last, been in high school, so I really can't remember, but I do know that there were a couple of classes that really didn't teach me much of anything. But that's not solely just the issue itself. The fact that, American people nowadays, like I've said, we've become stupider. We have become an extremely stupid race of people here in America. Doesn't matter who you are. Very rarely will you ever find anybody who's actually genuinely smart and knows how to properly use their brain. Many people are what we would call herd conformists nowadays due to politics and things like that going on. And oftentimes or not, though, these schools and things like that become extreme political based organizations and groups that pretty much side with one side or another or whatever it may seem to be. That's basically just, divide and conquer kind of deal with schools. But yeah, it's become a problem. But another issue when it comes to school is, and getting back to my original topic that I was saying, is that homework and other things like such are so heavily pushed on the youth. And I remember this too. I actually remember getting so much homework, so much freaking homework in like 3rd or 4th grade. I'm not joking. 3rd or 4th grade. And I had to carry books. Heavy, heavy, heavy books. Each book was like maybe 3 pounds, 3 to 5 pounds each. And I was assigned a lot of homework. A lot of people were assigned a lot of homework. Many of us and of our own selves had to do this on a daily basis. In fact, the heavy books and things like that we have nowadays were so insane, so painful and things like that it screwed up our backs. It screwed up my back. I have a hunchback, honestly. I can't walk with a straight back. I have a hunch now because of that. And that's another thing, too, that the American system has, is that they give so much work in the form of these giant, thick textbooks. Now, I do know that nowadays it's a lot more modernized, and it's more electronic or just separate papers and things like that, which is fine. But even then, like, not too long back, that was the case, so it caused a lot of physical damage. But also, another thing, too, in regards to all this homework, is that, for one, it's not even useful. I mean, you're not even really getting much of anything out of it. You're not gaining knowledge by doing it. I mean, you don't... And what's a really big problem is that there's usually so much homework assigned. There's usually so much homework assigned to one child. Even now. So much so that they are literally sitting in their rooms for hours on end trying to work or study. I know that for my own self. Every day of the week, it would take me at least 3 to 4 hours to get my homework done because there was so much of it, or there was so much studying that had to be done. And of course, parents would often quiz you and everything, and I always hated that personally because, oftentimes it's more of my own mental problems on my own hand, but still, it was extremely ridiculous. It was never needed to begin with. But unfortunately, though, in the American education system, this is something that is like of an extreme necessity to have. To have pages after pages of constant homework and ultimately losing the opportunity to develop life skills. To develop the basic things that we ourselves as human beings need in our lives. And it gets so bad with certain school things that some people actually genuinely feel like absolute failures because of it. That's true. I know I've already mentioned in, I think, the first video itself that I talked about, but it's certainly true, though. The grade system has become so extreme, that if the whole school doesn't have a whole lot, not only are you completely ranked down, but oftentimes or not, you could lose funding, you could lose privileges, you could lose a bunch of other things just because of the fact, heck, even teachers could even be fired because of that. And that's bad enough, because teachers get enough shit already with their students, and now they have to worry about the grading system and things like that. Come on. Give them a goddamn break. But better yet, give us a freaking break. Give our youth a break. There's no reason to give them a crap ton of homework or schoolwork in general. For one, you need to sit there and at least, if you're going to give them something, give them like a page or something. That way they can, do these things, get it all done, be able to know what you're talking about and learning, and then, go and do whatever it is that they want to do afterwards. But like I said, it's a huge problem with the school system. Is that you go there and you stay there for literally 6 or 7 hours a day, only to come back and have to work another 2 or 3 hours a day, and only it's up until around Friday that you finally get some time off. But even at certain schools, you don't get that opportunity. Sometimes there are certain schools and teachers that will assign you work over the weekend. In fact, there's even been a couple of cases where kids have had to do work on the holidays. Yes, that is a real thing. Sometimes, because of the curriculum and horrible education system, teachers are either forced or they have to give kids homework and other work to do during the holidays itself. And that's a problem. The weekends and holidays are literally the only times that any remote school kid or teenager or whoever actually has a break. And the whole summer vacation thing is literally only 2 months. That's ridiculous. But I think what's even more ridiculous is the fact that the education system itself is so flawed and so screwed up in more ways than you can think that that you have completely failed as an education system if it takes less than 2 months for the average student themselves to forget everything that they've learned. That's exactly what it is. That's how bad our education system is. Think of it. And don't say that you don't forget these things. Hell, I've been out of high school for literally 2 or 3 years now. It's about 3 years now. I'm 22 at this point. And I barely remember anything in regards to what I learned, like in math or science or any of those things. Don't get me wrong, some of them were interesting, but they didn't do much. They didn't give me anything. The only honest thing that I managed to keep in my head was writing classes. Grammar classes, writing, English 2, English 3. Those are the only things that actually stuck with me. And even then, I still have to learn more about it because I'm not perfect at it. But that was like the only thing that really gave anything. And if anything, I mean, that's another problem with the education system. You see, I understand that there are certain classes, however, that are extremely necessary. I mean, if the school system was simply like, learning your English, learning your grammar, learning basic math, and things like that, up until around, around algebra and things like that, that'd be fine. Unfortunately, for classes like math, you have to learn pre-algebra, you have to learn algebra, you have to learn geometry, you have to learn all of those things, and all of those things are useless. I mean, calculus. Think of how difficult that is for an average person. I couldn't even get it. I actually sat there and was lucky enough to pass with a D average. I was able to pass with a D average for algebra, for pre-algebra, algebra 1, and algebra 2 I managed to pass with a C because I remembered a lot of what algebra 1 taught, which is great, but still. I mean, if anything, I truly believe that, classes like those are exactly what they are. They are crap classes for a lot of people. I mean, unless you're going to be in a field that requires you to have a significant amount of knowledge in regards to algebra, calculus, or whatever it may seem to be, then you really don't need to take it. Unfortunately, it's a major subject in many places, and it's completely and utterly agitating, and it's ridiculous. I mean, many kids at this point can barely grasp the concept of it. But I think what's extremely insulting is the fact that they're trying to push this on younger children. Now, to an extent, I can kind of understand why they would do that. That way they have a better knowledge and capacity to know that kind of thing. But even then, though, algebra, or even pre-algebra, in and of its own self, is not meant for extremely young minds. Young minds develop in different, well, granted, every mind develops in a different kind of way, but still, I mean, there's some kids who could probably do it, and they're usually prodigies if they're able to do it well. But I mean, for the average child, though, it has to be done in a simple process. Like, when you go to, first grade, you shouldn't automatically be doing, like, times tables and, like, quadratic equations or shit like that. You should be doing, like, your basic, addition, subtraction, and things like that, and then gradually move on to multiplication and division. That's usually like in second grade. These kind of things cannot be automatically harped onto one student or a multitude of students all at once. They have to be taken gradually. That's how we learn. I mean, some people are different though. Some people can learn it like that in an instant, and that's fine. But for the most part, many kids have to take a lot of time to really figure this stuff out. Otherwise, they're not going to get it. And the help that the quote-unquote help that they get is going to not really be much. And they're going to fail, or they're going to have a problem with it. And yeah, it's an issue. But I think another issue in and of its own self, and like I said, I've already spoken about this in my first video that I did. But I'm going to mention it again because it does, kind of go into the whole thing with school. Is this grades? I've already mentioned a bit about grades, so I won't talk about this topic too much. But I am going to say this. Why the hell does it matter? If you really are going to sit there and put a ridiculous, heavy form on grades, if you're seriously going to fail somebody because of the fact that they have a bit of a struggle learning this kind of thing, I mean, then what exactly are you even doing? Are you even teaching it right? But I hate the fact that there is an extreme amount of pressure put on children to get straight A's, even by parents. And usually it's the older parents, and this is actually something too that's a problem. And I'm speaking to the older parents too. You need to understand something right here and right now. The education that you wound up getting back then is a million times different than what it was then. In fact, I remember when I had to learn algebra and everything, like the little times I would ask for help, it would be so confusing and so difficult because the way that parents would often do it is extremely different than what the teacher teaches you. And that's a problem. It should never be treated differently. But nowadays it's gotten so complicated just to do a simple freaking math problem. Like even for say 2 plus 2. It's like you just add 2 and then you get 4. Nowadays, it's like a different equation. Like you have to sit there and subtract this and then add that and then do this and then do that and then you get the answer. It's fucking stupid. But yeah, it gets to the point where not even parents can help you. Hell, every time I asked for help, every time, like the little times I've asked for help in regards to my math, it didn't do anything for me. In fact, it only made it worse, which is why I rarely, if ever, asked for help on my math. Because it's not how the teacher was teaching it, and if I were to do it in that way, I wouldn't even be credited for it. Because it's supposedly an old, outdated way of doing the basics of math, or the basics of any kind of thing. It's stupid. It's freaking ridiculous. And it shouldn't even be the case for that. Like, that shouldn't even exist. Look, the thing is though, if it's not broken, why fix it? I mean, if it isn't broke, why do you even need to fix it? Why do you need to improve it? If it worked back then use it now. Don't change it up every single year or every few years just because you think it's a lot more advanced. It's ridiculous bullcrap that doesn't need to be taught. And it isn't solely just in math. It's many other kinds of subjects. Now, thankfully, science classes, grammar, English, and the like are pretty much the same. And they've been the same because that's exactly how it is. And I'm thankful for that, because I did learn a lot with those. Well, mostly English and things like that, but still. And I'm grateful, but with math, that's the reason why math is oftentimes the hardest subject for kids. Because there's not one single way of doing it. There are too many ways to get it done, and if you do the wrong version of it, you fail. I mean, it's ridiculous. That's how the education system is. That's how it was with, what the hell was it called? I can't even really remember what it was. Oh, Common Core. Ridiculous. I mean, Common Core completely screwed up how kids worked, how kids learned. I mean, the education system, even then when that came out, was garbage, but it literally just went from garbage to a pile of dog crap on the side of the freaking street. That's exactly how it went, and it's only continuously getting worse as the years progress. Like, even now, you have a better chance of educating yourself on YouTube than you do in an average classroom. Hell, everything that I learned, I taught myself. I didn't need to sit there and have a teacher teach it for me. And oftentimes or not, it's a lot more. It's better than that. I mean, sentence structuring, reading these stories and things like that, it did a lot more than anything that than the public schools would have done for me. I learned much more. I can consider myself a bit more of a smarter person because of the fact that I am not in that disgusting education thing. Well, so-called education thing. Because it's not that. But, of course, I've already mentioned teachers, so I'm not going to mention any of that in the next one. So I'm just going to move on to this. Money. I never understood some of these things. And before any of you people call me a socialist or a communist or whatever, listen to what I have to say first, before you make any remote kind of, sayings. And even if you still think I am, well, screw you, you're an idiot. But here's the thing. I never did understand why public education, why is it that, education from pre-K all the way to 12th grade in high school is considered free, yet public colleges that get funding from the government, that get funding from various other groups and things like that, how is that not free? Or at least extremely reduced? I mean, think of it. Like, truly think about it. Just for one semester in a college course cost around, I don't know, $8,000 or $9,000. If not more, depending on the college itself. And that's just for one semester. Imagine you had to sit there and stay there for like 4 or 5 years of your life. You will be accumulating you'd be giving the place so much cash, so much money. But that's not the worst part about it. It's the fact that if you happen to fail, or if you happen to get expelled or whatever because of some bullcrap reason, all of that money will not be returned to you and you will be in debt. Oftentimes they're not. But I think what's even worse is that you have to usually you have to take out student loans to go to college. I'm not joking. I have family who are still paying off their student loans. And they're nearly 30 to 40 years old at this point. Some of them a lot older. They're having to pay off student loans that ultimately screwed them up to begin with. And what's worse is that student loans themselves cannot be eliminated, not even by bankruptcy. The only way student loans can ever be eliminated is if you die, and that's it. In fact, there are probably a lot of people that are probably contemplating killing themselves. Please don't do that, by the way, because it's the only way they can get out of their debt. And for a lot of people, it requires them to sit there and go off and get like a crappy job because they want to sit there and be able to pay for the things that they can get. Now, sure, you could say grants and things like that, but grants and scholarships can only do so much. In the American college system, it can only do you so much. There's never or rarely has ever been a time where colleges have ever been free for somebody. Never had an opportunity. Usually it might be greatly reduced, or it might be paid for by a bunch of rich people, rich kid parents or whatever. And that extreme rare instance where a corporation or an organization will be there to help pay for everything that you need to pay for, or there might be even or whatever it may seem to be. But it's completely ridiculous. And the thing about it is that there are various other kind of things as well that really don't seem to make sense. Like, for example, and I don't mean this to be like racist or anything like that. I'm just calling it out as it is. Like, for example, if you're Native American, for example, if you have like a certain percentage more of bloodline of Native American, and you go to your tribe and your chief signs something, you can go to college for free. You can go to college completely for free without having to worry about much. Maybe food and other things like that, and maybe even your dorm and things like that. But overall, though, you go to college and you don't have to worry about having to pay much or anything. There's also there's also another one too, affirmative action too. That's usually for specific minority groups and things like that, who sit there and are able to go to college for greatly reduced or free because of their race. Now, I could be wrong on some of these things, and if I am, please let me know. And I'm saying this not because of the fact that I have anything against any group of people whatsoever, and to an extent, I do understand why these things are. Especially the Native American one, because, well, technically speaking, that was literally hundreds upon hundreds of years ago, thousands actually. But even then, though, it is somewhat understandable why that is the case, but still, though. But unfortunately, though, for the average individual, like your average individual person, whether they be white, black, Asian, Mexican, whoever the hell you really are, they don't have that opportunity. Many people don't. And colleges themselves, like I said, they're way too expensive. People have to take out student loans, and ultimately their lives are going to be pretty much in the gutter because of that. But I think the most insulting thing, with it, is that even after you go to college, and you work your ass off, and you spend countless thousands of dollars, and you go up and you graduate, and you go there with your cap, your gown, your all of that, and you finally have that degree you have been working and saving so hard for, all the time, all the effort, everything that you have put your time to put in there, you have spent the time, you have spent the money, you have done everything that you could to make sure of it, that you succeeded, you made amazing grades, you did well, you did all of those things, and you finally get that diploma that says that you are certified in this, and then next thing you know, you're working at a McDonald's because no job will hire you. That's more often the case than anything. Studies have even shown that in American-based colleges, people who usually get a bachelor's degree are more likely to not be able to have the job that they have. Now, how disappointing is that? Not only have you worked hard and completely and utterly wasted blood, sweat, and tears, practically starved yourself most likely from lack of funding for food, but spent countless hours awake drinking a heavy amount of caffeine, practically having a caffeine addiction most likely, or energy pill addiction, and taking the test, studying everything, getting there, and then when you finally get all of that, you can't do much of anything. You can't get that job because there's either the places that you go to have either already hired somebody, or there's somebody else that they can get, or oftentimes they're not. They just don't want you. So you pretty much spent all this time and effort for nothing. And to add insult to injury, you have a student loan debt now. And of course, because of your degree, you can't work in certain fields. You usually can only work at fast food jobs making like $8 or $9 an hour. You will have funding taken out of your own paycheck just to pay for those student loans. You'll have all of these things layered on top of you, and if you're even remotely lucky enough to get an internship, if you are even supposedly lucky to get one of those, still doesn't matter because you're not getting paid. So while you're having to work at your internship, you're having to work at another job in order to make money. And yet we wonder why there's a lot of people getting on government assistance. Why here in America the government assistance is probably so high up nowadays. Food stamps, Social Security, welfare, all of those things. Every single one of those things. Even disability. Because you never know what could happen. All of those things that you have are pretty much what you're going to wind up getting eventually. Now let's say this. Say you actually do manage to get that job. It's not likely, but you might be able to get it. You finally get that job working in what you love, but of course, the payout itself, it does not even remotely equal the amount of money that you have to pay in your debt. There are doctors out there that make over $100K a year, 100,000 specifically, $100,000 a year, yet they barely have any time to really spend, paying for their college, their loans. Which is why loans are always a terrible idea, people. I don't trust loans, personally. I hate loans. I hate credit cards because you have to wind up paying for it afterwards. I hate the concept of credit. I understand if that's the case that people have to do it. Same thing with tabs. I understand that. But to be fair, people, it's a scam. Credit cards, loans, all of those things are nothing else more but scams to get you to not only buy more, but to charge you more. To charge you more and put you even deeper in debt. But for a lot of people, that's the only option they have is a credit card. because they don't have the money to be able to pay off anything, or their bank account is absolute garbage. That's the reason why people often go to those things. That way they can at least be able to live. Be able to eat the next day. And of course, even with all that, you are very rarely given much of anything. Your job that you desire so greatly to get in your life is oftentimes gone, or you don't get it. Sometimes there is, because of political tensions that may be going on, like say now, people won't hire you because of that. People are racist. People will not hire you because of your race. Other people will not hire you because of your sexual orientation. Unfortunately, that's legal in, I think, about 30 states, if not more, where they can legally fire you or not give you a job because of your sexual orientation. And that's not just with private business, it's public businesses too. Any business can do that. Same thing with getting you a job in a specific place that you want to go to. So of course, if you're a part of the LGBT community, you already have a disadvantage already. Hopefully that all changes in the near future, and I hope somebody sues those assholes for doing that shit, and ultimately either makes them pay for what they do, or things will hopefully be, reformed. There are places, especially now, like I've said, that are usually racist. Not everybody is, obviously, and I'm not saying that there's institutionalized racism or things like that, but I am saying, however, that there are racist people out there who won't give you a job because of the color of your skin, whether you be black or if you're white. It doesn't matter. They will not give you a job if you are a different skin color because they think that you're either evil, disgusting, or whatever it may seem to be. It's a terrible thing that's been going on. It's a terrible way of going out. It's a terrible way of thinking, but unfortunately, it's extremely prevalent. And it's 2019. It's 2019. None of this should even be the case, but it's unfortunately that way. So, the education system is ultimately setting you up to fail as a person. And don't even get me started on jobs either way. That's another video. I know I've already made a video about that, but I'm going to be talking about that one probably in another one, expanding more on it. But yeah, the education system here is screwed. Is fucked, to be honest. The student loan debt is extremely high up there, counting like in the hundreds of millions, if not almost in the billions. Unfortunately, there will never be a period of time that all of this will ever go away. In fact, another issue with the education system is that you are practically pressured to go to college, or you're pretty much brainwashed and given propaganda telling you that, if you go to college, you'll be extremely successful in life. And if you don't go to college, you're going to be a bum that's going to be flipping burgers for the rest of your life. I say bullshit. Flat out bullshit. It's usually the exact opposite. Now, of course, there are things like the SAT or the ACT. I only took it once. I wish I had taken it a lot more. But unfortunately, due to my stupid pride, and due to the fact that I was so dead set on becoming a priest, which never worked out, I only have one ACT test, and I don't even know what the score is on that. I practically missed out on a good opportunity to at least try and better myself. Now that's my own fault. But even with that being said, though, there's still many issues. Now what exactly am I telling all of you that you should do? To be honest, I'm not saying anything I'm not saying anything, to force any of you guys to do anything. If you want to go to college, fine. That's fine. But you better make sure of it that you at least have something to give. Because my dad stole all the money that I had for the seminary college I was going to. all the things that would buy everything that I needed and help provide for at least a few years was stolen by him, unfortunately. But even then, I mean, if I still had that money, I at least would have been able to do something decent with it. But I am going to get to another topic in general. And this is what I'm going to say. College will usually make or break you. Oftentimes, like 95% of the times, college is completely pointless to go to. Unless you're becoming a doctor or a firefighter or any of those kind of things that actually require you to have a degree in medical or any of those things, a bachelor's degree, or even a religious leader of whatever sort that requires such things, then by all means do it because it is a necessity, and if anything, it will help you get a job because there are people who are needed in that, especially doctors. There are tons of people that need doctors, especially here in America. But unfortunately, many of them commit suicide due to stress and many other horrible things. But if you aren't doing those kind of things, if you're wanting to be like a writer or a producer or any of those things like I want to be, the best thing I would recommend that you do is this. The best thing I can say that you can do is do it yourself. Educate your own self. Search anywhere that you can. Don't buy into the stupidity of certain groups. Online colleges are about as much of a ripoff as regular colleges are. They may be a little bit cheaper, but they're still way too expensive. If anything, if you really want to gain something, either go to a community college, where you actually have a better opportunity, I might add. It doesn't cost as much. If anything, it's like a fraction of a cost of it. Or, better yet, go to a trade school. A trade school will teach you all the basic life skills that you need to go to in life. And that is if you want to do those things. You'll have a higher opportunity of getting a job or a career or whatever, and you'll be able to make a decent amount of money. Think of plumbers, for example. Like your average everyday plumber. They make probably more money than most higher up individuals. And all they do is like fix pipes and things like that. Many of them are very wealthy. There are other people who are electricians, who are, other, different people. There are other things. Hell, even like the simplest kind of thing is being like a carpenter can make you a crap ton of cash. And if anything, making that crap ton of cash and making proper financial decisions can ultimately be a big help if you want to increase more in your life. Unfortunately, though, money is a huge problem here in America. I mean, the fact that it's difficult nowadays to get a job, how you're pretty much stuck with a lot of problems in life, how you could easily be disqualified for a job because of whatever reason it may seem to be, how you could be in of your own self completely jobless because nobody will want to hire you, and then you have no skill or any of those things to work an actual job. Or even if you do wind up getting a job, you're going to get the lowest form of pay that you're going to get. Minimum wage is that for a reason. It's pathetic. Minimum wage literally doesn't provide much of anything. It's like a tiny fraction amount of money. Now, I've heard a lot of people say that when it comes to that kind of thing, it's usually only reserved for people who, are in school or whatever. Unfortunately, that's not the case anymore. It used to be that kind of way, but it's not anymore. People are having to flock to there because that's the only jobs that they can honestly get. And where do you think all of that comes from? From the crappy education system. All of these things, the education system, our education as people, our education in our time of our youth to the time that we graduate is the number one most important thing that we have in our lives. It allows us to use our brains properly. It allows us to sit there and be able to think critically, to be able to balance out the money that we earn, to not be hoarders, to not be any of those kind of things, to sit there and be able to make good and proper financial decisions in your life, to help you understand these things, there's a lot of things that an education will do for you that will help you greatly. And I want to say something right now. I am not against education. I am not against learning. I am not against people gaining a wonderful education to be able to live properly for themselves. What I am opposed to, however, is the ridiculous American public school system, the ridiculous college system as well, the heavy amount of debt, the heavy amount of pain and suffering that people have to go through, the lack of a worth of a specific degree because of the fact that unfortunately you're not able to gain much out of it. I hate the student loan debt that we have. But you know something I can say right now? If you really want to go to college for a specific thing, go to a foreign one. Go out of the country. You have a better opportunity finding a good, affordable college to go to in a foreign country than you have ever here in America. You know, go to England, go to Germany, go to Czechoslovakia, go anywhere. Like, go anywhere where you can go and, gain that education if you really, really want it. And many jobs will usually take it. Hell, go to Canada. Most of the awesome shows that we get, especially cartoons, like the Backyardigans, for example, is from Canada. You want to learn to become a great producer and animator or whatever? Go to freaking Canada and go to college there. Go to England. Go to any other place. Don't even bother going to an American-based education thing. Don't go to college here. It is a waste of time. And any foreigner who is coming here, I guarantee you, you are going to have more of a hard time here in America being able to work through college. In fact, many foreigners would never want to go to an education system here because our education system, as I've said before and what I will continue to say, is complete and utter crap. So unless there is a huge reformation within the education community, which there won't. I mean, unless, somebody forces it or something. Or if there's ever like a balance or things like that, where things can be fair. In that manner, then the education system here in America would be better. Now, I'll always never understand certain things in life. School is one of those things. But like I've said, until they sit there and they, completely and utterly fix everything, then don't bother. Because you're better off saving the money that you have, going to a foreign country, and getting an education there. And for anybody who does want to go to college or anything, I would recommend you look up any school and college that will take you in any foreign country. That will allow, transfers, or the foreign exchange students, or things like that. Do that, and you actually have a higher success chance of getting a good job without having to break the bank. You have a better opportunity. Hell, in fact, in Mexico, you have a better chance of getting a great education there too, because things there aren't exactly crazy expensive. A lot of things aren't crazy expensive because people have brains. I'm saying this because it's extremely necessary. And this is for anyone who's wanting to go to college, including myself. And I'm telling you all this because I care about all of you and I want you all to succeed in life. That's what I can say. If you want to go to college, if you want to do any of these things, go foreign. Because it's oftentimes a lot cheaper, it's 1,000,000 times better, and of course, you'll have a better opportunity in life afterwards. That's really what I have to say at this point. Wow, this was a long video too. I apologize for that, but there was a lot that had to be said about this entire situation that we're all going through at this point. I do also want to thank you guys again for watching this video. I want to thank you guys for everything. I really hope you all learned something from this. And I get it if some of you may disagree with me on these things, and that's understandable, but please try and look at it through another perspective as well, to at least understand what people like ourselves are having to go through now, and what people have had to go through in the past. In fact, not too far away from the past. It's just only extremely necessary, and unless you walk into our own shoes, you really don't have much to say or offer at this point.